Hello, this is Angelia, and you're listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development, and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And today we're going to be talking about living in institutions. We've been talking about elders and living arrangements, so now we're going to talk about living in institutions. A lot of people don't like that idea, but let's face the facts. If you live long enough, chances are you're going to end up in one for a short-term or long-term stay. We've already talked about it, me and my husband with the kids and everything, and, there are criteria where we say, if we're like this, just go ahead and put us where someone can be there 24/7, take care of us. We don't want to be a burden on you guys, and so we've got that hashed out. My dad's got his little plan, hashed out. My mother-in-law's already in a assisted living facility because her dementia got bad enough where she can't mentally make wise decisions for herself or anyone else, and physically she's got to the point where she can't walk without falling, and she's a little stubborn, so she was not really using her cane and walker like she should have. So she's now in a wheelchair at the facility, and her leg is not working right. And they did physical therapy with her for a while, and they just said this is as good as it gets, So just like memory care, they did it and said it's as good as it gets. So you might have to end up in one. Nobody really wants to, but it's something to think about. The use of non-family institutions for care of the frail elderly varies greatly around the world. So, like I said the other day, we were talking about different cultures, and different cultures, still have a lot of traditional beliefs, have the one family home and things, and it's not really like that here in the United States of America. A lot of people can't afford to have a big house like that and support older folks, and so that's why we have social programs supposed to take care of that. But different countries are different all around the world, and we're gonna talk about that too. Institutionalization is very rare in developing regions, but is becoming less rare in Southeast Asia, where declines in fertility have resulted in a rapidly aging population and a shortage of family caregivers. Now, that's also, I hear, becoming a problem in China. Because if you remember there for a while, China was like, we don't want girls, you have to have a son, and then you can have girls, and then, limited you to 2 children and things. Well, now, all of their older folks, and some people ended up not even having kids. And so now they're having a situation where there are a lot more older folks, whereas, the parents and the grandparents' generations were having 5 to 10 kids or more. And now we've got just these only few little people, and so the burden of care is becoming greater than their society can handle. In developed countries, the percentage of elderly people in residential care in the 1990s ranged from 2% in Portugal to nearly 9% in the Netherlands and Sweden. So, it was still a very small amount in these countries. Portugal is Hispanic country, so their values are that, you care for the elderly, and usually the women don't work outside of the home, so that is, something that they can still do. In Sweden, there's a lot of leniency and liberality in Sweden. Everybody just kind of does whatever they do. So, it's probably easier there to be able to care for older folks than, a country where people are working 9 to 5 and having, small homes, and, it's not always going to work in every home. Comprehensive geriatric home visitation programs in some countries, such as the United Kingdom, Denmark, and Australia, have been effective in preventing functional decline, and holding down nursing home admissions. Now, we do have some of that here in the good old USA, but not near enough. Like in my city, there's only a few agencies, and they are so backlogged. There was a visiting nurse coming to see my father when he came home from rehab after his last fall. And she left because she couldn't get enough hours with this one company and went to another one. And then, he didn't want to see another nurse. So he was just like, I'm good. I'm done anyway. But there is a shortage of staff. A lot of folks don't want that job. I worked at a nursing home for 2 years, so I can tell you it's a hard job. I hurt my knee and hip in a nursing home and pulled a bicep and a tricep working in a nursing home. So it's a hard, heavy job. It's a dirty job, and a lot of people don't want to do it, At the time I was working there, I had a grandmother in a nursing home. They wouldn't let me work at that one, because she was there, and they figured that she would get preferential treatment. And honestly, she would have. She would have gotten all the treatment. But because I wanted to bring her to my house, and my, her children would not allow that. So, so because I didn't do that for her, I couldn't do it. So I guess I decided I would do that for other people's grandmas. It made sense to me at the time. I felt like I really wanted to do that, but I couldn't do that. So that's what I did. And I worked there for 2 years. That's how I found out I was not going to be a nurse, because I started in the nursing program and I couldn't do blood and stuff. So, I had started the LPN training, but I couldn't finish it. So that's how I learned nursing was not in my future. In the United States in 2000, 4.5% of older adults were in institutions. So that's still, a fairly small percentage of older adults in nursing homes. But like I say, the instances increase with age, as compared with 5.1% in 1990. So, there are getting to be more programs, so it's getting better for older adults to be able to stay at home. But the lifetime probability of spending time in a nursing home is higher, especially for women who live longer than men. So, ladies, that's something to think about. If you live to be old, which is, 80 and over, 80 to 100, or oldest old, 100 and more, chances are you're going to end up in some type of care situation. So just be prepared for that. It's not the end of the world. It might be the end of your home, and your home life, and, but it's not the end of the world. Like I say, there's so much that you can do if you take advantage of it. About half of the women and 1/3 of the men who were 60 years old in 1990 will eventually stay in a nursing home at least once. Like I said, my father's been to rehab, twice, and came home twice. My grandmother had been in, twice and came home twice. So, excuse me, and this is the second time my mother-in-law has been in, but she's not coming back home. She's going to be there for the rest of her life, because no one can stay with her 24/7, and her dementia has gotten to the point where, she's doing crazy things, and the police have been to her house a couple of times. She left a shovel out in the middle of the road, supposedly, when she was digging plants, and, there there was a lot of strange things going on over there that we're still learning about. But, she was making some interesting decisions, like, she decided she liked this one preacher, so she bought every book he ever wrote, and I forget how many books that was, but, we felt like that's her prerogative. But her oldest son said, did you even know how much they cost? Did you even add up how much that was going to cost you? And she's like, well, no, I just wanted them, so I got them. So she was shoving bills here and there around in cabinets, and the bills were getting to be late, and they were getting collection notices, and he was getting calls from doctors because he's her medical power of attorney. This bill hasn't been paid yet. Why hasn't this bill not been paid yet? And so, he had to take over everything. And someone had come to the house, and the neighbors expressed concern because they said strange people were coming to the house. She was letting them in the house. And she's like, oh, well, that was so-and-so, and, this and that. And we're like, but you didn't know that, did they show you? Well, no. Why would they lie about that? Well, because people will lie about stuff, and, so, with that and her falling constantly, the decision was made, and there she stays. Like I say, she confused one of my sons as my husband's little brother. He became his little brother some kind of way. And then, she couldn't remember when they were coming. She couldn't remember names. She was confusing, people, like his brother's kids with his kids. And, it was getting kind of crazy. So, ladies, just kind of keep that in mind, is that sometime you might have to not be in your home. And it's not going to be the end of the world. They're going to have activities for you to do. They're going to take you out places to shop and things and go see and do things. Take advantage of those things. If you end up in a home, take advantage of all they have to offer. Live your life to the fullest. Because, yes, it is sad if you have to leave your home that you spent your life, building up and collecting your stuff and whatever. It is sad. But the facts are, life is not over, you can still have a very fulfilling life in a nursing home if you take advantage of everything they have to offer. And that's my advice, is don't sit there being sad and looking out the window and sitting in the chair in the dark and being sad that you're here. Be happy that you're still here. You made it. You made it to be an older old or an oldest old. You made it. So take advantage of everything they have to offer. Live your life. In all countries, the likelihood of living in a nursing home increases with age. Like I said, you start getting past 80 and 100, chances are you're going to need some extra help, some extra care. And our problem is she's, 91 years old. So her sons are both in their 60s. They're not physically able. The last time my husband tried to pick her up out of the floor, he hurt his back. And he hurt it bad. And he said, Mom, you're just too heavy for me to pick up anymore. I just can't do it. So she was mad at him, because he said that. But it's true, he has a bad back, bad hips, and he just can't do it anymore. So the problem when you get to be older, old, noticed old is your kids are old too. Your kids getting old, and they can't physically take care of you anymore. Unless there's a big, age gap or a close age gap, like my mother was only 20 years older than me, then the chances are, like I say, as you get older and oldest, your kids are getting older too. And they might not be able to physically care for you anymore. So you're going to have to realize that this might be something that might happen in your life. Especially, like I say, once you get over 80, over 100, you're probably going to have to be somewhere or have someone coming in. My mother-in-law really wanted to stay in her home. And so we looked into having a nurse come and stay with her. She has a spare bedroom, a couple of them. And the cost was astronomical. And I just told her, I said, you can't afford this. I said, you make X amount of money, which will keep you in a comfortable home, but you can't have someone coming in. You can't afford that. You're not that wealthy. She didn't want to hear that because she come from a poor little country town. And to them people, she is wealthy, and, she has a nice big home and she makes, X amount of money a year. So to her, in her mind, she's the wealthiest person she knows, except for her sister. But anyway, she's not that wealthy. She can't afford to have a nurse come in 24/7. And so she was grasping at straws, trying to say, "Don't you all know any good Christian people? Put a bulletin up at churches. Help me. I want to stay in my home." And of course, that's not really a thing nowadays. And anyone who's not working and wants to live with an older person, you kind of question their personage anyway. My grandfather let this woman move in the house with him, and she took him for everything. We still had stuff there that belonged to my grandmother. She sold anything she could get her hands on, pawned anything she could get her hands on. By the time we found this out, me and my mom and my uncle went over there in a panic and got everything of hers out of the house. There wasn't much left, but we got what we could, my mom started taking over his finances because the bank contacted her and said, you're also listed as a contact here on this account. These people bring him to the bank when he gets his check, and we see him, have him come out of the car, and they're standing there waiting on him, and he comes in and gets his check cashed, and then he goes out to the car, and they take off with him. So we're concerned he's being used, which he was, but, we're going to not get into the karma of that. He was not the best person going. So, got a little karma smack there. But, unless this person is a professional caregiver with references a page long, inviting a stranger into your elder's home to take care of them is not a great idea in this day and age, So, sometimes you got to realize that the people who are around you might be trying to take care of you. That's what I told my mother-in-law. I said, we know you're safe here. Everyone knows you're safe here. You know you're safe here. We're not putting you in any danger by inviting strangers in. You're not inviting strangers in, like she had been talking to some folks that came into the house. So, everyone knows you're safe. We know you're safe. If you fall, the nurse's station's right out here. All you have to do, she's got a little thing she wears around her neck, and she's got a little button on the wall and a button in the shower, so that, if something was to happen, she can just call somebody. So, in her case, that's the way to go. Now, like I said, my dad's over there. He's fine. He's doing his thing. So he's had to crawl to the phone before to call my uncle. He fell and he ended up on his back like a turtle. And he's got a fused, spine and neck. So he couldn't get over. He just, couldn't roll over. He was weak. And so he's learned a lesson, he said, to keep eating his protein. But, he had to crawl. He had shingles anyway, so he wasn't feeling too good. And he had to crawl to the phone on his back. So, but he's mobile now. He's not using his walker anymore. He walks around all the time. So, he's doing good, and, he's strong. So that's the difference there. Is he was a person that, had a physical job, and he went out and did yard work and stuff like that. And, so he had some musculature, unlike her. She never did a thing in the world ever. She was always telling everybody to do everything for her. She was, a little Southern belle, and everybody do stuff for her. So, just realize that as you get older, chances are you might have to go somewhere. And that's not the end of the world. In the United States, from about 1% at ages 65 to 74 to 18% at age 85 and over. So again, as you get older, the likelihood goes up, a lot as you age. So, the United States, we're still a little bit behind other countries in getting home health care. That is something that's pretty common in other countries, but not here so much. And that would, enable people to stay in their home and put less of a burden on nursing homes, which are often understaffed. I know the one I used to work at certainly was on a regular basis. At highest risk of institutionalization are those living alone. So again, if you're a widower or a widow, and you don't have someone home to help you all the time, you might start, like my mother-in-law, start falling. You might end up with dementia and start having problems taking care of your own personal business. And that is going to be a thing that could be a factor in you having to go somewhere. Those who do not take part in social activities, loners, unless that's how they really like it, are more, likely to end up in a nursing home. Like I say, my father is that type, but he's very happy being alone. He's basically sad that he has lived as long as he has. He talked to his doctor about, depression, and he said it's older depression where people get so old and they're like, why am I still here? But, he goes out to breakfast and goes to the drugstore and the bank. He goes out with my uncle occasionally, and, we come over and see him every now and then, so, don't isolate yourself. Don't stay in your house alone unless that's what you really enjoy. There are a lot of folks, they don't want to be a burden, they don't want to be a bother, because they know they're getting old and their brain's not as fast as it used to be, and their feet aren't as fast as it used to be. I know mine sure aren't. That shouldn't hold you back. Because, my kids enjoy talking to the grandparents. They think they're funny old people. And I remember we kind of thought ours were too. But, you can still get out and do things. There's community centers. And, if you check your local newspaper, nowadays, nowadays your websites for things going on, for seniors, there's plenty of stuff that you can do. Don't socially isolate yourself if you're a person who enjoys socializing, because that's going to be the fastest way for you to get depressed, is to stay home alone in your house, in the dark, not doing anything. Those whose daily activities are limited by poor health or disability, again, if you're having a problem taking care of yourself, then that's a problem. You have to be able to eat right, take your meds, do some exercise to keep yourself from turning into a bowl of Jell-O. So, those are things to think about when you get old. And oldest old is you need to take care of yourself and keep some activity happening. And those whose caregivers are overburdened. And most caregivers are, like I said, we're in that sandwich generation. Our kids are mostly flown the coop now. We have one that's still with us, and he's going to stay that way for a while. There are circumstances. And the other two have flown the coop. But like I say, we have the mother-in-law who's now we get a little breather because she's in the nursing home. So my husband doesn't have to be over there every day, and one of my kids don't have to be over there every day. So that is a relief on us. We have a little breathing room. Because, like I said, my dad is not a problem. We might go to the store for him, and that's not a problem because we're going anyway. And we might bring some food by if we're, out his way. And like I said, my son likes to kind of visit with him. He's of the millennial generation where he's always on the phone all the time, but he'll still hear you and talk to you. And, I think they were born with this phone in their hand. But, a lot of folks don't have any help. And there are a lot of people, like I said, especially if there's an age gap, my grandma was in her 30s when she had my mom. So if there's a pretty good age gap, and this person still has young children to take care of in the home, and then they have an elder that they need to take care of at home, that's not going to work, is it? Unless they're really well to do and they live in a big, huge house, and have staff to help them, that's probably not going to be a realistic option. 3/4 of nursing home residents are women. So, ladies, again, we outlive the men. So, 3/4 of them are going to be ladies. So, ladies, this is something to be thinking about and prepare yourself for when you get to be older, old, and oldest old, is that you might have to go to a nursing home. Like I say, it's not the end of the world. They have activities that you can do all day long. You can have your own TV and radio. They take you on excursions. We've all seen the jokes about the old folks on the bus. But, do these things. Take advantage of these things. You're still here. You're still here. Live your life. Just because you go into a nursing home and have to downsize, it's not the end of the world. Mostly white widows in their 80s and older. So, like I said, ladies, especially Caucasians, live a little longer than some of the other folks. But, like I say, it might end up being a thing, so be prepared. A large minority of residents are incontinent. Many have visual and hearing problems. A little over half are cognitively impaired. So, again, like I said, I worked at a nursing home for 2 years. Most of them are incontinent. And a lot of them have seeing and hearing problems. And like I say, my mother-in-law's cognitive decline has been going on for about 5 years. With advancing dementia, of course, when you can't even remember who you people are and how you're related, you certainly can't take care of your personal business. So, that's just something we're going to have to think about as we get older. So, white women, you need to really be thinking about this stuff, because we're on the bad end of that. On average, they need help with 4 to 5 of 6 basic activities of daily living. And now, if you go to them, these are the things they're going to be looking at. So these are, the 6 basic activities of daily living that you need to be looking out on. Bathing. You have to be able to bathe yourself. You have to be able to wash everything that needs to be washed. Now, like my dad stopped taking showers because he said it made him busy and hanging out with the sink. Did the same thing. So, he washes at the sink, now. And like I said, we've got him the dry shampoo, and he can use a wash rag and everything. So he's still bathing. My mother-in-law developed some problems. She slipped and fell in the shower. So, she's, they've got her a shower now that has the rubber, things and this little seat and everything, so that she doesn't have to stand up in the shower and move around. They got the little wheels on the seat and everything, so that's pretty cool. I told her she's got like the coolest nursing home I've ever seen. I was like, heck yeah, I'll move in here now. But it really is. It's a really nice place. If they can't bathe themselves anymore, that's a problem, because you can get bacterial infections on your skin, especially women, especially places that need to be washed on a daily basis. But a lot of older women get these infections. You've seen the commercials where they talk about the infections. So, that is something that is going to need to be taken care of. And if you can't take care of that, that can be a problem that comes into play. Eating, again, you have to be able to feed yourself. We had several residents at the home that I worked at years ago who could not feed themselves. They were propped up in a chair with a big thing over them like a bib, basically, and we had to spoon feed them. They wouldn't even. One woman, she just, I mean, the lights were on, but nobody was home. I mean, she didn't even look at you while you were feeding her. As soon as it would touch her lips, she would, suck it in. But that was it. So you have to be able to feed yourself if you're going to live alone. Dressing, you have to be able to dress yourself. My mother-in-law has now developed problems getting her socks on. So, she might be upgraded. Her oldest son was unhappy that she got upgraded to a 2, but she had a real problem getting her socks and shoes on. So she might even go up to 3 pretty soon. Getting into a chair. She has a problem, with that. She falls into the chair, basically. She turns around, she falls into the chair. She missed one day when we were there, and she hit it with her hip and bounced off and caught herself on her wheelchair. But she's like, oh, I misjudged where the chair was. Well, yeah, how often does that happen? So, my dad has a lift chair because when he had shingles really bad, he had a problem getting up. It hurt him so bad. So, they got him a lift chair. So now he doesn't even use the lift feature now anymore, because he's better now and he just gets up out of the chair. But he does have a lift chair, so he said, if it gets bad again and I get old, I just use my lift chair and get up. So if he gets old, he's 84. Toileting, again, that's an issue that most people in a nursing home have a problem with. My mother-in-law has a problem with that. She's incontinent. She wears, it depends. So, a lot of people have this problem. And walking. Like I say, walking has become a problem. She can go maybe a few feet. It's getting worse. She could do 20, she said. But now we saw her try to walk from her chair to her sink in her room. And she almost fell before she got to the sink. And so we told her, she goes, I can walk that far. And we're like, no, you can't. Because she'd been using the wheelchair all day. I think she was showing off for us because she does that. So, that's become a problem. A good nursing home has an experienced professional staff, an adequate government insurance program, and a coordinated structure that can provide various levels of care. And like I said, they have levels there. My grandmother-in-law was in a facility where you have your own apartment starting out, and it goes all the way to the hospice. So there are levels of care. Now, the one that my mother-in-law is in has 4 levels of care. They don't have hospice, but, they will send them out. So, that's something to look into, is a place that has levels of care, so that if you start out, and you're doing good, and you can have your own room, she has a sink, microwave, all that stuff. And, then you go to the other rooms where, someone's got to do something for you 24/7. It offers stimulating activities and opportunities to spend time with people of both sexes and all ages. And they do have that, and that's something to look for when you're looking for one, is they have activities, and they take them out, on the bus, to go places and do things, because like I say, that's what you should be doing. If you have to go into a nursing home, take advantage of it, do that stuff. You might not think it's great, because she went to bingo once, and then she realized you didn't get any money prizes, because, you got these little dumb things, as she called it, little dumb things. But, let's just face the facts. It's probably not going to be a money prize at bingo in the nursing home. They can't afford to be giving away thousands of dollars at the nursing home bingo. So, but still, it's something to do. Get out, talk to people, She's now got a few ladies that she talks to at lunch, so she's getting some friends. But take advantage of these things. If you go into a home, don't just sit there and be depressed. It's not the end of the world. You might feel like it is for a while, but you're still alive. you're still here. People, still will come and visit you, and everything. And so, take advantage of it. Live your life. You live to be an oldest. Oh, enjoy it. You've earned it. It provides privacy, among other reasons, so as residents can be sexually active. Now, a lot of people, especially my kids, have thought about that. It's like, but I worked in a nursing home for 2 years, and I can guarantee you, folks in the nursing home are having sex. They still want to, and they still do. I walked in on a few things more than once, so I'm going to tell you, it's still happening. So don't be shocked, children and grandchildren, if there's some activity going on with your elder. It's just a deal. We found my mother-in-law sitting with a man one day. She has these women she always sits with at lunch. Well, she was sitting with a man one day. And as we were going back to her room, me and my husband were like, I guess that's her new boyfriend. Because she likes having a boyfriend. She's had another one that ended up going in a nursing home, and then she didn't like him so much. But now that she's in there, she has talked to this one man. I don't know if anything's going to come of it, but, we wonder. And so they can visit undisturbed with family members. Like hers has a door, and her door actually locks. She can actually lock her door if she wants to. Now, they have a key to it, of course, and she has a key to it. And that's something to, think about as well, that there is some privacy where, people just can't walk in and out. Because that was a problem at the nursing home I worked at, is people would come in other people's rooms and steal stuff. So this one, like I said, has a locking door, and they have a key that they wear around their neck so that, that doesn't happen. And that's a good thing to look for when you're looking for a home for your loved one. A good nursing home also offers a full range of social, therapeutic, and rehabilitative services. And like I said, it should. You should have rehab coming so often, doctors, nurses, whoever, come so often to keep up with your elders' care. An essential element of good care is the opportunity for residents to make decisions and exert some control over their lives. And they should, no one should be forced to do anything they don't want to do, nor should they be excluded from anything because of their situation. So, kind of go in and fill the place out and see if anyone's, not being included in things when you're looking for a home for your elders. Among 129 intermediate care nursing home residents, those who had higher self-esteem, less depression, and a greater sense of satisfaction and meaning in life, excuse me, were less likely to die within 4 years. So again, if you have a good attitude, if you have a better attitude about it, you're going to keep living. And, why not have it? Because you're still there. Life goes on, and you might as well enjoy it. Perhaps because their psychological adjustment motivated them to want to live and to take better care of themselves. And they should. So, like I say, adjusting to this part of your life is only going to behoove you. Federal law sets tough requirements for nursing homes and gives residents the right to choose their own doctors, to be fully informed about their care and treatment, and to be free from physical or mental abuse, corporal punishment, involuntary seclusion, and physical or chemical restraints. Now, back in the 80s when I worked in a nursing home, there were physical restraints still. They had the wraparound vest where it had, a tie coming out this way and then that way and then a tie coming out that way. It wrapped around like that, and they tied it around the back of the wheelchair. And that was for folks who had advanced dementia. We had some women, who had stood up in their chairs and fallen, and, so they had the restraint to keep them from hurting themselves. This one woman got up and they forget they're supposed to be in a wheelchair. And she forgot, and she fell and had a big goose egg on her head that morning. So, before anybody could help her out. So she had to go into a restraint and be, tied to the wheelchair. Now, they don't do that anymore. That's against the law now. You can't do that. But back in the 80s, they were still doing that. Oh, my. And now, my grandfather was determined that they were putting saltpeter in the food to keep them from wanting to do things. But to my knowledge, they were not doing that. But he said, I know the taste. They did it to us in the Army, because he was in World War II. So I don't know whether there's any truth in that one or not. That was still happening in the 2000s, but he swore it was. But it's not legal now, so it's not happening now. Some states train volunteer ombudsmen to act as advocates for nursing home residents, to explain their rights, and to resolve their complaints about such matters as privacy, treatment, food, and financial issues. And now they have a counselor at the one she's at. I don't know how many of them do. We didn't have one. We had a nursing advocate at the one I worked at, and she would come, every so often and talk to people. So, as the baby boom generation born after World War II ages, and if current nursing home usage rates continue, it is projected that the number of residents will double by 2030. We're in 2025 now, and like I say, I can see that it's creeping. I mean, when we were looking for a place, most of them are full, like 1 or 2 beds. When we took her there, 2 beds open. So, it's getting close. However, with liberalization of Medicare coverage, hopefully it stays that way, and the emergence of widespread private long-term care insurance, there is a shift toward less expensive home health care services, and that would be great. That would help a lot of people. And group housing alternatives. Now, we don't have that so much here in the USA. Home health services are most prevalent in Scandinavia and the United Kingdom. So we could be looking towards our neighbors across the pond and investing some money in our older folks instead of all the crap that we're invested in now. But, so living in an institution might become a reality for you as you get over the age of 80 and especially over the age of 100. So you might want to be thinking about that. It's not the end of the world, and if you take full advantage of everything they offer, you can live the last, depending on how far you live, the Bible says the years of man are 120. So my theory is, I'm planning on living to be 120 till God tells me it's time to check out. So, if I end up last, 20 to 40 years in a nursing home, I'm going to make the best of it. So, excuse me, especially white women who are widowed. These are things you need to be thinking about. It's not going to be the end of the world. And, you can have a full and happy life and make the best of it if you end up living in an institution. So, that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching or listening. That's all for now. Until next time.